Hello, folks, and before we get into today's episode with Emily and I want to bring to your attention the Unreasonable Connection event, which is always in the link in the show notes, and we do it every month. And I'm particularly full of it today because I spent Saturday with a group of co-working and co-living people in a little town on the border of Portugal and Spain, talking about how to run their co-working businesses and all the little bits that go with it. And we just sat around talking, and so much stuff came out of there. And we all took notes, and that's kind of what Unreasonable Connection is. Once a month, 1 hour, co-working and community builders getting together to share what's working, share what's not working in a private online environment. And it's not recorded, there's no sponsors, there's no band, there's no parachuting in from rock stars. It's just you and your peers talking about your journey, and you can come back every month and repeat that. So link in the show notes as always. And in our studio today is Emily Breeder. Do you want to do what are you known for? What do you like to be known for, bit, Emily? Just to get it going.
If I must. What am I known for? Oddly, I think I'm known for online content. That was the feedback I got back recently. Although I haven't maintained a blog in years, not under my own name anyway. What would I like to be known for is helping neurodivergent people run their businesses and have a sustainable workflow that honors their mind and the way it works.
That's exactly why I'm still alive today, folks. Me and Emily have been, we've known each other and worked on loads of projects over the last 15 years. But for the last couple of years, we've been unpicking the mind of Bernie and putting it back together. That makes it sound way more medical than actually what we did. We used a Kanban board and got organized, and it was a delicious journey. That is something that needs constant maintenance. But one of the things that comes up in that and the cohorts is that existential overhead. So how we talk a bit about that in this podcast when we do our episodes together, but there is a big existential overhead for people trying to run their businesses at the moment. And like, to get us into today's episode and why it's like super valuable to listen and go and get a pencil and take notes, what is that existential overhead that both you and I in our own little ways are wrestling with too?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, everybody's feeling this, I'm sure, anywhere you are in the world. There's a lot of what we call existential overhead, or the things that you have to carry around with you in your mind. And a lot of the time it can just be like, when do you need to pick up your dry cleaning? When do you need to, the meal planning and ordinary stuff that you do every day. But then there's this added layer right now of there is so much cultural and social strife, so much political garbage happening in the world, things that you can't do anything about, things that are weighing overhead and that you can't step out from under. And it's a lot. And in that atmosphere of, emotional overload, we still need to build and maintain our livelihoods. And how can you can't predict the future. You don't know what's going to happen next. The one thing that has been constant is extraordinary change that no one saw coming. Some of it we did see coming. I'm not saying there wasn't some of it that was predictable, but a lot of it was like, what do they say? The 2025 bingo card. A lot of the things weren't on it. And I'm not going to mention any particulars because I don't want to get into any politics. I am American, so this is all very raw for me. But as we talk about this, I just want to remind everyone, is something that Bruce Lee said: absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. It's a Daoist philosophy. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things about, mindset and starting ground and sustaining your cadence of work, etc. Just take what you can from this and just leave the rest. Don't worry about it, and maybe come and listen to this again when you've worked through some stuff.
I was as you were talking there, because I never scroll Instagram at night, but one of my favorite people in the world is very random here, is the Prime Minister of Barbados, and she's called Mia Amor Motley. And she is phenomenal. And she was talking, she gave a speech at the weekend at a local election in Barbados. And she was talking about, and certainly not in a moany way, in a very vulnerable, honest way, how hard it is to be the Prime Minister of Barbados and work for the people in her constituency and her country. And then she's also a mother, an auntie, and a sister. And she listed off. And again, I don't want to get into the, I'm very like active other ways, but I don't want to like get into a whole list of things that are going on in the world. But she's just listed off all the things she's involved in around the world. And she's just the, the mother, the auntie, the sister. And in her day job, she's running Barbados and is very involved in the United Nations and UNICEF and all these other things and trying to sign peace deals between countries like way bigger than Barbados. And I was thinking that is a big existential overhead,
Indeed.
So where do we jump off? What's the jumping off point?
So Bernie and I have recently been working on our personal brands. We've been, of course, working with Third Place Works and, of course, London Co-working Assembly for much longer, but also trying to work on our own personal brands and make what we both do more clear. And in the challenge of that, I feel like we come up again and again against the mindset and the intention piece of it. Of, on the one hand, you're offering something that you want other people to see the value of, and hopefully something that's very useful. And on the other hand, you need to think about it the way they do, not the way you do, in order to communicate that. And that's been something I've been really stumbling up against as I, at the same time, field the, social strife that's happening around me here in Ohio, which is quite tense at the moment. I can tell you that. So I feel like the starting place has to be one of a very grounded place of stability, because before you raise power, you need to be grounded. Otherwise, that power can do destructive things, even if it's only to mess itself up and make you start over again. Have you had any experiences like that, Bernie?
We've only got a short time today, but yes, there's absolutely. And it is like one of the, I don't think it's just because, being dyslexic and ADHD, but it's like very, very hard to focus. And when there's a lot of stuff going on around you, when I think you're either able to focus unbelievably or you just cannot focus at all. And there's people, particularly around a few years ago when Russia invaded Ukraine, people who are Ukrainian and in our co-working community just kept on going. And I'm amazed at what they managed to do. And I was it kind of put things in perspective. I think this is like half answering your question, sorry. Because I was like, I just, I can't get the right coffee, so I can't write my website. And then these people have had their country invaded and are traveling across Europe and still managed to maintain their business. And it is so hard to settle your brain to get clear so you can put that message online clearly. And one thing I want to, and then we'll jump back to you, is in the Urban MBA course, which is either a 12-week program or a 12-month program, like 70% of it is about mindset. And quite a few people come to Urban MBA to set up their projects, and they think it's about, I'm going to do all the marketing. But, one of the things Kofi and the other instructors there teach is like, you need to get your head in the right place, or at least the best place you can at that moment in time. And then it's much easier to move forward in the end. So mindset is really, really important.
What's the mindset that you find most useful?
I like settle I always get out of bed like the world's going to end. And sometimes in my world it is going to end. But then I immediately like get to meditating and tapping. And I know it's cheesy, folks, but I use that snow globe analogy. Like everything's rushing around, and when I settle, I can actually like see the scene, if you like. And I'm not sure if that's exactly the answer you were looking for, but like that's how I get my main mindset. And the more I do that, which has been pretty much nonstop for 15 years now, the clearer it gets, and I'm able to see how to deal with things.
I feel like for me, I have to start in a very physical place, because I tend to be highly conceptual and intellectual, and that can draw me out of my body and put me into a mental spiral, especially when I've got so much happening in my mind and in my heart, concern for what's happening in the world, what kind of world I'm going to leave for my children, what are they experiencing right now, what's going to happen for my business next week. I have to literally go put my feet in the dirt and feel the sunshine on my face and ground myself in my body and remind myself that this is where I am. This is what is happening. This is who I am. This is what I'm experiencing. And that brings me to a place of stability. And from there, I can more clearly see what it is I need to directly work on, that I can set aside my feelings about all these other things for a moment, for an hour, for a day, and have the clarity I need to move forward. That mindset by itself can take, I know that, it sounds like, oh, you go put your feet in the dirt and then, you take a deep breath and it's better. No, it's not that simple. It has taken a lot of practice, and sometimes it can take hours, days to get into the right mindset before I can move forward on a project. And it has been quite a big part of my practice to be okay with myself needing that time, because it hasn't changed. And I don't know that it's, at this point, at least, possible for me to change it. I just need to work with what I've got going. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to start working with neurodivergent people, is because I feel like the message is around altering yourself to meet society's demand, when in fact, if you work with your neurodivergence, you don't fight it. Of course, there are places where you're going to have to put certain things into place so that you can interact with the world more in a more meaningful, more productive way. But there are also ways in which you can use parts of it for strengths, which allows you to see different situations from an alternate point of view, that brings a lot of perspective, that helps move things along.
There's a couple of things there. Is like working with you and working with Janine and working with Kofi a lot. There's like it's like it's okay to be neurodivergent, and you all know how to say it. Like, just ask, is that, what do you mean by that? How's that working out? Are you going to be able to do that spreadsheet, Mitchell? Because that's not really your core game, is it? And the same with Lorena here at home. Is it's okay not to be able to do some things, and I think everyone's got something they're okay with. But like we had a thing here where I was trying to look up the bus timetable to get to Portugal, which is just across the road, and I got so confused. But at the same time, I was writing a 1,500 word article that took me less effort than working out the bus timetable. When it's okay to go, that's not me, because there's a big difference between I can't be bothered to do that and I'm never going to do that. And I would have worked out the timetable in the end.
Sure.
So it is working out where to use your energy the best. And going back to what you said about that like ritual starting thing, like I have to write 750 words, and sometimes it's only in the last year that I've been okay with not doing it. But I get sometimes I don't write. My day doesn't start till like 5 o'clock in the afternoon because I haven't written 750 words. And particularly when I'm like most anxious or really not sure what's going on or lacking direction or haven't talked to anyone like you, I can't do anything until I've written those words. And that's why I think working with someone and being in, team members or buddies or partners or stuff like that is really important, because what's going on today gets you unstuck. Whereas if you just don't talk to anyone, you'll spend like 3 days and won't know what's going on.
Yeah, that accountability piece is really important. And some people need a whole group of people to be accountable to. That's great. And some people just need an app to be accountable to. That's also okay. It's just a matter of self-awareness.
All those, like when we first met like 15 years ago, everything was an app. And so much now is like a little note. And, we use Upbase to track the podcast and stuff like that. But because one, I've just tried so many things, and I always knew this, but you can't outsource your success to an application. And when you've tried 47 different Kanban boards, you realize that it's you, not the tool. And it just gets, the more you do it, like, the simpler it gets.
It does. Well, I mean, it can for periods of time. I don't want to, assume that, because there will be periods where it's very smooth sailing, and then there will be periods where, even though nothing has really changed, things won't work as well, and you'll start that self-doubt cycle. So, and that's more in the sustaining part of it. We start with, a solid grounding, and then raising power, gathering your resources, making sure you have all of the tools that you need. And then the sustaining cadence, where you, over time, even if the work stays the same, your thinking about it will change, because nothing is static. And that's when that practice of self-awareness, I use journaling a lot for this, to kind of mark where I am and make intentional milestones on the path. And it is a spiral path. You'll pass the same goalposts again and again and again. And eventually they'll get smaller and smaller and go away, and you'll see new goalposts. But just to keep moving along the path and have that staying speed.
One it's only just popped in my mind is since August 2018, Karen and I have been doing that 12-week year. Like, every Monday morning since 2018, we've had a weekly accountability meeting, and the going through that 12-week process, which is like two mates talking about a book and like, what did you get done and stuff like this. And so many life events have happened and going up and down. It's almost like the amount of times we've been through that little sequence, and some are really good and some are really bad, and we're in a really good cycle at the moment. It is one of the biggest learnings is that it's not constantly building to something amazing. It ebbs and flows, which is, if you looked at it from the outside, you go, well, that's obvious. But it's when you're continually doing it, you realize that not everything is perfect all the time.
Right. And nothing is ever really perfect. That's an illusion.
Don't say that.
And believing that it is perfect is, a step backwards on the path, or that even that perfection is possible. And that's part of the sustaining cadence also. We come to a point where you kind of have to pause and examine. And in Scrum, we use the retrospectives to do this, where you look back at the work that was done and you examine it and you see if processes could be improved. And there's always that question that you need to ask yourself: am I wrong? Like, those things that you've assumed about your work, about your business, about yourself, and over time things change, and you may not be aware of those small incremental changes. But just to go back and look at yourself and say, hey, let's look at this with fresh eyes. Let's see if some changes need to be made. And if no changes need to be made, that's great. But sometimes there is, and it's a good idea to get more than one viewpoint on that. Diversity in thinking is the name of the game. That's how we move forward.
And when we do that, there's so many times I forgot we've even thought about doing that. It's amazing what falls off the table that you were all excited about at the beginning, or worried about at the beginning, or having anxiety waves about, and then it didn't matter in the end. What about so is that retrospective? Is that the purposeful pause, or is that another type of pause?
It is. Absolutely. It is the purposeful pause, but it can have many different faces to it. Like, it can be the retrospective, and it can also simply be taking a moment in your work especially when things seem knotted and tangled and unclear and muddled, to take a step back and look at the big picture. Now, for some people, it's very difficult to do this. That's why it's important to have that supportive community for accountability. There might be someone who you can say, hey, this is the situation. I'm not seeing it clearly. Can you tell me your impression of it? And it doesn't mean that that person's word is gospel. It doesn't mean that it's, the absolute truth. But seeing someone else's perspective on it can help you reframe it in a way that is useful to kind of start pulling those threads and untangle. So, for example, while you and I started working together for that first, year and 3 months, when we first started like really working on untangling your specific workflow knots, as the person who was facilitating, it was more for me a challenge of allowing you to gradually see the things for the first time. Things that were holding you back that were super obvious to me in the beginning. If I had said, you need to drop this, 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 and this, it would have almost felt violent, like I'm trying to get you to cut off 2 of your arms so that you can move forward. So these things need to unfold in their own time and in their own processes. But at the same time, you can point at it and just say, sit with this bit for the next sprint, for the next 2 weeks. This is what we're working on. This is where there's a problem. And even if I know what the problem is and know what the solution is, it's not necessarily the best thing for me to tell you what to do. Because in the long term, what can often happen is you'll do that thing, but then you'll start to second guess it because it wasn't your idea and it's your work. We do this with kids and child rearing a lot too, where you have to let them make mistakes and just continually guide them back to that spot and let's look at this again, or let's do some work on this. And without giving them super specific instructions, allow them to unpack it themselves. And that might seem like that person who is doing the guiding isn't really doing anything sometimes. And for the person doing the facilitation, sometimes it feels like that. It's a little bit frustrating. Like, I just want to reach in there and flip the switch for them. But ultimately, until they know where the switch is for themselves, then they're not going to actually learn from it.
I wildly believe in that. There's a whole book I read in education about that. When people make the decision for themselves, they that is core to a lot of my life. Is when you worked it out for yourself, you own it. I'm going to say exactly what you just said. Sorry, you own it and you understand it from inside out. But when someone says, do this, you can see how it makes sense, but if you just don't understand it at the level where it's like internalized.
Yeah. It doesn't create the new neural pathway. It doesn't carve a new path in your mind unless you do it yourself. That's when you have the intention behind it, that personal intention. Think about it like if you needed, let's say a joint replacement, you had to have your knee replaced. So you have it replaced, but you still have to do physical therapy. You still have to teach your muscles to work with the new piece again. And if you don't, the knee's never going to work right. In fact, it can cause you a lot of pain in the long run. Did that analogy make sense?
It did. I'm thinking, when you said that, I got to say it out so we can move on. Like phantom limbs, like I've read a lot about phantom limbs and how you overcome that sensation, and it's got nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Tell me about that really quick.
So you lose an arm, you still feel pain or something in that arm, even though it's not there, but you can't do anything about it because it's not there. It's like something to do with your brain. And there's a guy with an amazing name, and what he would do is, or what he does, I think, is he sets up mirrors. So I'm going to make this example up. The mirror bit's true, but he'll set up a mirror so you can like scratch your arm, so you can get rid of the itch that's on your arm that's not there anymore. So you can. I'm going to have to put a link in the show notes to this because it's a lot, isn't it? But,
yeah, I think I saw that in an episode of House, actually.
Yeah.
I saw him do that for a veteran he'd had his arm blown off by something in while he was in the military, and he had pain for decades. And he set up the mirror, and you take the existing hand and you clench it and then unclench it, and then that's when the brain is actually finally able to let go of the grenade or whatever he had. Yeah.
Thank you for saving that analogy there. And if you can organize your phantom limbs in your environment, that will help you run your co-working space better.
How so, Bernie?
That's in the next podcast where we'll be talking the phantoms that hold your co-working community back. So about permission to keep going. That's our final chapter here today.
Absolutely. Permission to keep going. So this comes back into the cadence again because it isn't a loop. You'll have to revisit the starting ground and raising power again and again and again. And in the cadence of work and the pause, those two will cycle many, many times. And just being aware of where you are in the cycle. And even after a certain point with practice, you can start to predict what's happening next. You'll start to see the warning signs that you're going to need a pause soon. And you can start putting those pieces together. There are other times when you can tell that there is a period approaching when you have a ton of things that you're going to have to do all at once, and there's going to be a lot of changes, and maybe you've got a lot of things going on in your personal life. And that's when we have run our cohorts to help people through those times. And it's the same kind of thing. It's having that community, that accountability, reaching back into your people and asking for help, and even just asking for an opinion or some company while you do the work. Body doubling is extremely useful, and you don't need to be neurodivergent to find it useful.
Yeah, the thing I always want people to do is go and talk to someone else, and all the way, like in all the little meetups and groups and co-working spaces I've been in, the amount of times just like chatting to someone who's a fellow freelancer or business owner or something like that is just speeds things up. One of my favorite stories is on my greatest hits is when I was in a co-working space in Hackney in London, and I sat next to Niels, and he was a WordPress developer, and I would be Googling stuff, and he'd look over on my screen and be, "What are you doing?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm just looking this up." And I would spend ages looking up, where the blog post button was on my WordPress site. And he'd just say, "Press that." And I learned more about WordPress sitting next to Niels and asking very informal questions and being shown things than if I'd probably gone on a WordPress course. But that was just a website thing. And in so many things, people have got unstuck just by talking out loud about it. And it's so easy to just hold stuff in that's very simple to solve in a group setting.
It is. And it can also be helpful to reach into other industries, to something way outside of your field of expertise. I can't tell you how many times I have, while running my online business, found inspiration and value in guidance from sports psychology, or from the film industry, or all kinds of things. Manufacturing. You go and you study how, or examine, if not study, how they do their work, how they resolve problems, the creative ways they've worked through certain issues that come up again and again and again. You can learn about those and apply them in many different ways. So if you feel like you're really stuck, try changing your field, try changing the context. That can be very helpful.
Anything to do with restaurants and cooking is what I like reading about, because I grew up in that, and I like to pull things over from that industry into this industry. So there's not a lot of call for omelets in co-working spaces, but I'm going to find a way. So Emily, where can we find you online?
You can pretty much find me on LinkedIn. I'm not on many socials, and that's for my mental health. I'm also on Blue Sky at the moment. Don't know if I'll keep that forever, but I've been posting there about what's actually happening in the United States. I've been taking a little bit of a breather right now just because it's too much, and I need to focus on my work. But I post there from time to time. That's a good place to get in touch with me. How about you, Bernie?
Just type Bernie into the internet and you'll get Bernie Sanders. But if you Bernie J. Mitchell, anywhere online, and I'm most active on LinkedIn. And something I would say, folks, is for a long time now, I've had a timer on my, I'm sure you can do this on Android as well. I have a timer in my iPhone settings that severely limits the amount of time I spend on social media on my phone, and my mental health is being increasingly better. And then it actually shuts down everything on my phone apart from my sleep app at 10 o'clock at night. And that it's taken about 6 months, but that's forced me to just not do stuff after a certain time. And of course I creep back in every now and then, but like cutting it all back has been way more productive. And this weekend I went away for the weekend to a little co-working get together, but I didn't take my laptop, and I was so proud of myself. Anyway, go to the link in the show notes, folks, and there's all the, I'm going to have to look up that phantom pain thing, aren't I? And there's the LinkedIn co-working group, there's the workspace design show, there's the, what else is there? There's something else, Unreasonable Hospitality, which is the get-together we run every month. And wherever you are in the world, be careful out there. It is a jungle. Say goodbye, Emily.
Bye, Bernie. Bye, everyone.